After 6 months of sailing through the balmy Caribbean islands, it is time to go. It's time to point Florence east for the first time on this 7-year circumnavigation. It's time to recross the North Atlantic Ocean, our 5th major ocean crossing.
We know it is not going to be easy. We are no longer in the trade winds. We will face headwinds, strong winds and calms in our bid to complete this ocean odyssey and return home to England.
Between us and England lie over 4,000 miles of open ocean sailing.
Thankfully, there are 2 safe havens where we can break our passage along the way, in Bermuda and then the Azores, before the final leg home to the British Isles.
We are Amy and Matt, and this is Florence, our home and safe haven upon the ocean. Together, we have sailed over 46,000 miles around the globe, on a 7-year voyage of discovery, and now it's time to sail back to where this journey began. Six days into our passage from the Bahamas to Bermuda, we are finally able to enjoy the beauty of calm conditions out on the open ocean, hundreds of miles from land. But with more bad weather ahead, we also need to use this time to make repairs and preparations on board.
Another beautiful day out of the ocean today, hardly a cloud in the sky. We've got a bit of a big rolling swell. I just woken up for my morning watch, and first task of the day is going to be to sort this winch out, because last night we were tacking upwind and this winch stopped working. It works in one way, but the other way it should lock. It should have a ratchet mechanism that stops it going backwards, but it's not working. So that means probably that the pawls inside are either gummed up, or the springs on them have broken, or the pawls themselves have broken. So we've got spares for all of those things, but it means that I now need to strip this winch down here whilst it's calm weather today, because in a couple of days' time it's going to be really windy, according to the forecast, who knows, and we'll need to use this winch. That nearly went over the side. So I just pulled this out from the side of the winch and removed all the bearings that were inside it, and I think that's our culprit, because that, when I twist that, should have a clicking sound of those pawls ratcheting round inside, and now you see suddenly that started working just as I was twisting it, whereas before it wasn't. I could spin it back and forth and there was no resistance, whereas now it will lock in one way. So I think when I open this up, I will find, I've got to be careful because there's springs and stuff in here. Yeah. Okay, so these are the 2 pawls that we're talking about that I think have either got jammed in like that. Well, I think that's all that could have happened otherwise, because there's no other reason for that to be a problem. They've got little springs in which are tiny. These are normally the bits that go ping and go flying off over the side, but luckily we have spares of the pawls and the springs on board in case we do have one go over the side. Not the bit that I nearly dropped over the side earlier, no spares of that. Okay, well, I think that was the culprit. The other one in here still works and ratchets round fine. This one clearly didn't. So what I'm going to do is, everything looks fine, the springs look fine. So I'm just going to clean that all up, re-grease it, put this back together, and then that should get us to Bermuda at least. And then if it works all the way to there, I'll probably be really lazy and not take it apart again. But if we have more of a problem or it's intermittent, then I'll strip it down again and do a proper job on it in Bermuda. Right, so that's all cleaned out, re-greased, reassembled. So we'll put it back together. Okay, so you can hear all the ratchets and pulls are working now. Now this is the sort of ocean crossing we like to do, apart from the slamming sails. Light wind, downwind, gently rolling to the point where I can put a cup of coffee on the side without it falling over. Oh, he says, oh, I'm holding it, that's a bit more of a roll. And to celebrate the changing conditions, we are having pancakes for lunch. Or actually, in England we call these pancakes. I think in any other part of the world these would be called crepes. But it's one of the very few things that I cook on board. Amy does all of the cooking.
It's aggressive popcorn.
Top budget fruit cocktail when you've got no fresh fruit left on board, and French chocolate spread.
How much chocolate spread?
Oh, it's going to be a good one. We actually ended up motoring for 15 hours straight yesterday and over last night because there was just absolutely no wind, but that's what we were expecting in the wind hole. And then at 2 o'clock this morning we got the faintest little bit of breeze. It was quick out with the sails, and we've been sailing at kind of 3 to 3.5 knots ever since. But the sea states really eased down and we're just like beautifully gliding downwind. And we always chat about what we're going to do next when we're on passage, and often it's like, where are we going to sail next? And after the first few days of this passage it's more about not sailing anywhere next. And now this is why we come out and sail across oceans. It's absolutely beautiful sailing out there, just blue skies, calm seas, and gently sailing along, just powered by the wind. It's awesome.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm just coming to the end of what has been a spectacular night watch. Really starlit night because it's easy to see the stars, there's no moon at the moment, and we've had some bioluminescence in the water, which means that Florence is leaving this kind of glittering trail behind us. And for me, this is one of the best things about ocean sailing, but it's frustrating that I can't show you that on camera because it just doesn't come out. It's been such a nice, calm evening, just enough wind to keep us moving. We're moving along nicely. I think we've actually got a bit of current with us as well at the moment, so we're managing about 4 or 5 knots. I've just had to switch over from being poled out dead downwind to now we're on more of a reach. But that's all I've had to do for the whole 4 hours that I've been on watch. The rest of the time I've just been able to appreciate the stars. And that's a lot easier to do at this stage in the passage because I find that my body's finally got used to the night watch routine, and so I'm actually feeling awake at 1 o'clock in the morning rather than struggling to stay awake for my entire watch and it being more of an endurance event. Unfortunately, I think this evening is the last of the calm weather. I can see some lightning on the horizon, whereas most of the evenings that we've had, we've been really lucky to have clear skies. And that big wind that's forecast to come in is going to come in later tomorrow as well. So yeah, this is the last calm evening of the trip, probably.
Dawn on our 8th day at sea found us motoring in a flat calm once more as we worked our way through the wind hole between us and Bermuda. Usually we would have just sat drifting and waited for the wind to come back, but with strong headwinds forecast to follow this calm period, we are keen to make as much progress towards Bermuda as we can before they hit us, and therefore reduce how long we are in the rough conditions.
Although having no wind can be frustrating, it can also be a magical time out here, so far from land and civilization.
Dawn and dusk are magical times on board at sea. Not when it's really, really rough, but when it's calm and you've had time to sleep properly, just enjoying the calm in the morning is just magical. And although I know today is going to be the last calm day and this evening we're probably going to get strong winds and then we're going to be bashing into it for the rest of the way to Bermuda, it's just beautiful this morning, even though I had to turn the engine on at about 4:30 because we ran out of wind. Normally this would be my time to go to bed, but actually I've just put the kettle on. I'm going to make a cup of tea and sit down and enjoy this time in the morning.
After 9 hours of motoring, the wind reappeared, and Florence could spread her wings and lean to the breeze once more.
Today's absolutely flown by. We actually had some really nice sailing conditions. The wind's been building throughout the day, but we've been really busy preparing for those stronger headwinds which are coming later this evening. We've been checking that everything is secure on deck and also down below. I remade the bunks so that when we're tacking back and forth, we don't have to swap the bedding over to each side, and we've got a bunk available on each side, and one of which Matt is currently having a bit of a sleep before dinner this evening. We've both been making sure that we're really well rested as well, because I think that's one of the things that really contributes to seasickness is how tired you are. So hopefully this next lot of wind won't affect us in the same way that the last one did. The forecast has now moderated slightly, so it's showing that we're likely to be getting regularly 20 knots with the apparent winds that will obviously be more across the deck, and the gusts will be higher too, so probably similar to what we had before. Today we've seen hundreds of the man-of-war jellyfish. First they were drifting past the boat when we were motoring in the non-existent wind, And then now we've just gone through a whole patch of them, fairly spread out, but yeah, I've seen hundreds today. We haven't had much luck fishing. I was woken up from my off watch by the fishing line going off, but by the time I got on deck it had already got off the hook. Matt thinks it was a tuna, but and a big one, but unfortunately we didn't see much of that. Other than that, we've just been catching sargassum, seaweed, and unfortunately some ocean plastic. We've only got 139 miles left to go to Bermuda, so we should actually be there in a couple of days. We would normally do 139 miles in one day, but obviously sailing upwind we have to travel pretty much twice the distance. So yeah, we should be there on Saturday, and today is Thursday. That is the fishing line, and I think that might be a fish. Either that or a massive patch of sargassum seaweed. Yeah.
We've had no luck catching a fish, so I've made us a vegetarian chili. We're down to absolute store cupboard ingredients on board, but today the weather's been calm enough for me to make flatbreads. And I'm increasing the nutrition of our meals with some sprouts which I've grown on board, and I'm hoping will help us ward off the scurvy. With a cloud bank approaching on the horizon, indicating the approach of rougher conditions, I want to make sure that we have a filling meal, just in case we don't feel like eating anything for the next couple of days.
Thank you very much.
After dinner, we were straight into reducing sail for the approaching strong winds.
Well, we had dinner just in time. As soon as dinner was over, we are straight from full Genoa and full main into 2 reefs in the main and staysail. And it is blowing, we've got 25 knots apparent at the moment. Sea state hasn't built up yet, thankfully. Still fairly flat, but this will just build, I'm sure. And there's another cloud bank in front of us, so I'm not sure if that's going to build more or what it's going to do, but we're ready for it. So 6:30 in the evening now, we're going into our watch system, half an hour later than usual because putting the reefs in and getting the staysail out took a little bit of time. But it's much lighter in the evenings now because we're so much further north. So normally at this point it'll be kind of sunset, but I've got another hour or two until sunset to go, which is nice, having a bit more daylight in the day.
It took a while for the sea state to pick up. So to start with, we had some lovely fast sailing in gentle seas, but we knew that this wouldn't last.
The seas built with the wind through the night, and by dawn the following day we had to hang on to Florence, and it was a rough ride.
In conditions like this, we need to keep a sharp lookout, as even huge ships can be hidden between the waves, especially when they are painted grey.
welcome to the glamorous world of going upwind on a small boat in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean.
I actually really enjoyed my morning watch this morning. I was trying to take some shots of the waves, just enjoying the scenery, but I think 24 hours of upwind sailing is enough for any passage. We've both had enough now. I'm down below now on my off watch, which is the nicest place to be, the bunk in the centre of the boat, so where the motion is less, but it's still pretty much impossible to get any sleep down here. We're both starting to feel really tired just because we're both struggling to sleep. The motion doesn't really come out on camera, but the best way that I can describe it is like trying to sleep on a bouncy castle, or what I think our American friends would call a bounce house. And you've got 50 kids all bouncing around at different times and different speeds, and then every so often they all do a massive synchronized jump and come crashing down, and at the same time somebody makes a really loud bang. Yeah, so pretty impossible to get sleep down here. Although it is thankfully nice and dry down here. We were both just remembering our passage down to New Zealand when we had a horrendous leak, and the only comfortable place in the boat to be was here because it was just this rough, but we had a drip that was coming straight down onto our head.
So this is the on-watch position today, wedged on the floor in the cockpit, because A, with the boat's bouncing around so much, and B, because waves are hitting the bow, bursting over the whole boat and going over the whole cockpit. We've got 30 knots across the deck, we've got all 3 reefs of the main and the staysail now. To put that into perspective, the next stage in reducing sail is to swap the staysail out for a storm jib, so it's pretty breezy. Sea state isn't too bad. It's a glorious sunny day, blue skies. We've got a fantastic view out the back of the cockpit of the waves after we've gone over them. But I can't really stand, well, you have to stand up every 10 minutes or so to have a really good look, 360 degrees, to keep a lookout for any ships or anything. But when you do that, you have to time it so that you don't get a face full of salt water when you poke your head up above the spray hood. Yeah, so Florence is looking after us. She's doing really well, but it's not conditions we choose to be out here in, but you know, I think we left, I've lost count the number of days. I think we left about 8 days ago now, so the forecast doesn't go out that far accurately, so you never know what you're going to get. And unfortunately we've got upwind. Just over 100 miles left to go, which will probably take us about 24 hours in these conditions. So about this time tomorrow, hopefully, we will be bearing off and sailing into the calm waters of St George's Harbour, I think it is, on Bermuda. Thankfully, neither of us are feeling seasick, so obviously the first stage of this leg from Bahamas to Bermuda, we were used to flat calm, and that sea state really did for us, certainly did for me. I was thrown up over the side, and I'm very grateful that I don't feel that way anymore, even though we've got rough conditions again. The sea state isn't anywhere near as bad now as it was then.
Next time, we sight land for the first time in 9 days, as Bermuda appears on the horizon. A welcome place to make a pit stop for repairs and to explore before we kick off for another 2,000 miles of open ocean sailing.
If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss an episode, and that's absolutely free.
We are usually a couple of months ahead of the videos in real time, and that means that right now we should be partway through our North Atlantic crossing. Sailing Florence offshore from the Caribbean to England via a couple of islands on the way. If you'd like to see where we are in real time, then please join the crew over on Patreon to see the tracker map where we post a daily update.
As always, we want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supports the making of these videos, and especially our star patrons.